Fresh census data shows that China's population is growing slower. Are people having fewer babies, and why? We talked to couples, parents, experts, and youngsters in Shanghai to try to cobble together some explanations. Although they aren't representative of the entire country, but their reasoning does shed some light on the bigger picture. In China, over 8 million couples registered their marriage last year. Zhang Zhaoshen and Pei Na are one of them.
But we are still planning our wedding ceremony, that kind of stuff.
But nationwide, the number of marriage registrations has been falling for 7 years in a row. Well, if you look at the cost of marriage these days, you'll see that it's not a walk in the park. About a half a century ago in China, if you had a bike, a sewing machine, a watch, and a radio, you would have been considered the perfect suitor. These were called the Big Four. Today's Big Four are quite different.
I need a ring that I like, and I don't mind the other stuff that much. But I know girls of my age have many requirements. If you are getting married in Shanghai, you need a local hukou. You need an apartment probably in both people's names, and the guy needs to provide caili.
There's a lot to unpack here. Let's break it down. First, a ring, preferably diamond. Second, a hukou, which is a very Chinese thing. It's a government-issued residency status that, among other things, gives you access to important local social welfare and benefits. Naturally, people looking to get married in big cities would expect at least one of the spouses to have a local city hukou, as opposed to a rural one. A hukou in first-tier cities is notoriously hard to obtain, but not totally impossible. In Shanghai, a person has to be employed and pay taxes for 7 years in a row to be eligible to apply for one. The next box to check, an apartment, which on average is well over $7,500 per square meter in Shanghai.
Housing is more like a preferred when it comes to Western culture, but more or less like a must in China.
Some analysts have been calling this absolute need for housing rigid demands, and it's one of the reasons why housing prices keep rising in China. Buying a house is considered a rewarding investment by many Chinese families, and sometimes the single biggest investment in life for many. Next item, caili, which is in the word cash that the man gives the woman's family.
Most guys choose a lucky number, like 188,000 or 288,000 yuan, because 8 is a lucky number in China. It just shows you care.
After you've taken care of all this, you still have a wedding and a honeymoon to plan. With all these daunting prerequisites, it's natural to assume that many Chinese would not want to get married. But data says it's actually not the case.
The marriage rate dropped from 2010 to 2020. It was just a slight slip. If we look at people around 45 years old, more than 90% are married. This percentage has not changed much in the past 30 years.
Why? One major reason is that traditionally, parents are expected to finance much of their sons and daughters' marriage. For example, while it is virtually impossible for many young couples to afford an apartment, their families could both afford half of the massive down payments. Data shows that Chinese people are getting married later in life so that they can handle the mortgage and the cost of raising a child.
The competition is pretty huge nowadays, so people trying to get everything settled before they talking about getting married, having kids. That's stable income or higher income, preferably speaking. And also the overall expectations on the social levels is going to delay their marriage.
A later marriage plus the huge financial burden could translate into fewer kids. Shanghai is one of the most expensive cities in China. What is it like to raise children here for a middle-class family? Gu Mingmin's eldest son is only 9 years old, but he learned to play this song when he was in kindergarten. Her youngest son, who is now 4 years old, was born a year after China loosened its one-child policy in 2016. It was a decision that needed some courage.
If we'd calculated the cost of raising another child, we wouldn't have dared to have a second one, honestly.
So just how expensive is it to raise a child in China's first-tier cities? Well, counting away the expenditures on baby formulas, clothes, and hiring nannies, there are also costs that possess Chinese characteristics. The biggest investment for the children is education. And in China, such investment might not necessarily start with a school, but an apartment. You see all these real estate agencies across the street? See, according to current policies, if your child is to be enrolled in a school of your choice, you need to own an apartment in the same city district as the school.
问他那个一些好朋友的家长。
In the first parent-teacher meeting during eldest son's final year in kindergarten, some parents told me they had purchased new apartments near good schools 3 or 4 years ago.
我都在干什么？
I thought to myself, what have I been doing? My husband and I went straight to a real estate agency after that meeting.
Of all home sales in Shanghai last year, more than 20% were in good school districts, and the prices for apartments there rose over 8% in 2020.
我们当时那个是新房子嘛，然后当时我们
We sold our previous apartment and bought one in this old neighborhood. This apartment is about 20 to 30 square meters smaller, but we had to take an additional 3 million yuan mortgage out to pay for it.
After the apartment procured, then come the tuition fees. In Shanghai, there aren't enough good public schools to meet the demand for high-quality education. That brings many parents to private schools, which offer more dynamic courses with a much higher price tag.
老大3年幼儿园上下来15。
The 3-year kindergarten tuition alone for my eldest was 150,000 yuan. It's more expensive for his younger brothers, which is over 5,000 per month. My eldest son's primary school tuition is 13,800 yuan per semester. But there are better schools that can charge up to 2, 3, or even 400,000 yuan a year.
可能一年是10几、20万、30万、40万都有。
But it doesn't stop there. Enter after-school classes.
Basketball classes, swimming, Chinese Weiqi, and piano classes. The English classes alone cost 14,000 a year.
It is estimated that after-school classes could become an $86 billion industry in China in 2021.
在这个周末的高峰时段，
On weekends, we have on average 10 classes per hour and about 40 to 50 classes each day.
可能会有40-50个班级。
And it's never too early to plan far into the future.
你想出国吗？
Do you want to study abroad?
学习深造吗？
21-year-old Zhang Chengqi went abroad for college and is currently studying at the University of British Columbia in Canada. But he isn't using loans to pay his way, as student loans aren't nearly as popular for Chinese students as their Western counterparts. Instead, like many, Zhang's parents are financing his entire college education.
大部分专业是
In my university, you need 120 credits to graduate, and each credit is about 1,200 Canadian dollars. It gets more expensive every year. I guess to finish 4 years of school, you'll need at least 1 million yuan.
What's more, college education doesn't mark the end of your child-rearing expenditures. Per tradition, there is one more investment to be made, especially when you have a boy, and it's not a small one at that.
They will both have to get married. It's our duty to provide them apartments.
Great, you finally said it. You feel the pressure now, do you? My husband lay on the couch like this all the time, saying not to worry about anything. But now he admits there is pressure. Now you finally said it. We got it on camera.
Wild Goo's case is hardly representative of all Chinese urban families, but the pressures they face in raising their children are also faced by other city parents as well. Many experts say China is having a demographic challenge. While judging by the boxes that Chinese people would have to check before getting married and after having kids, this challenge is pretty much a financial one.